When people think of Napoleon Bonaparte, they often imagine the unstoppable general who swept across Europe like a storm. But what if I told you that one of his greatest victories almost became his most humiliating defeat? Today, we're diving into the Battle of Marengo, where Napoleon was losing for 12 hours straight, before turning the tide in one of the most shocking comebacks in military history. It's June 14, 1800. Napoleon had just crossed the Alps with his French army in a daring move, hoping to surprise the Austrians in Italy. His goal? Secure northern Italy and force Austria to negotiate peace. But the Austrians weren't amateurs. General Michael von Melas, commanding over 30,000 men, knew the French were scattered and unprepared. He planned a massive attack to crush Napoleon before the French could regroup. The stage was set at the small village of Marengo, in northern Italy, a place about to be etched into the history books. At dawn, Austrian artillery thundered. Melas launched a surprise assault with wave after wave of troops. Napoleon's army, about 28,000 strong, was caught off guard. For the next several hours, the French were pushed back relentlessly. Napoleon himself couldn't believe it, his troops were being outnumbered and overwhelmed. Villages fell, French lines bent, and retreat seemed inevitable. By midday, the French had lost ground everywhere. Napoleon's own reports later admitted that things looked so grim he even considered retreating entirely. For 12 hours straight, the great general who seemed invincible was actually on the ropes. What makes this battle so fascinating is how Napoleon handled the pressure. Most commanders, when losing all day, panic. But Napoleon stayed calm. He moved along the battlefield, reorganizing troops, sending reinforcements where they were most needed, and slowing down the Austrian advance as much as possible. He stretched time, waiting, almost gambling that something would change. Around late afternoon, just as the French seemed ready to collapse, General Desaix arrived with reinforcements. Desaix, one of Napoleon's most loyal and talented commanders, had been ordered earlier to scout for Austrian movements. But instead of finding the enemy, he returned to the battlefield at the perfect moment, with fresh troops. When Desaix saw the dire situation, he reportedly told Napoleon, "This battle is lost, but there is time to win another." Napoleon quickly reorganized his forces. Desaix's fresh infantry was placed in the center, while General Kellerman's cavalry prepared a devastating charge. At around 5 p.m., as the Austrians thought victory was secure, the French suddenly launched a full-scale counterattack. Desaix's infantry slammed into the Austrian lines, halting their momentum. At that critical moment, Kellerman's cavalry thundered in with a perfectly timed charge, slicing through Austrian ranks and throwing their army into chaos. General Melas, already exhausted and injured from earlier fighting, couldn't rally his men. The Austrian army broke apart, retreating in disorder. By evening, the French, who had been losing for most of the day, stood victorious. It wasn't a cheap win. Desaix, the man whose arrival turned the tide, was tragically killed in the fighting. His loss was a heavy blow to Napoleon personally. But strategically, the victory was monumental. The Austrians were forced to retreat out of northern Italy and soon agreed to an armistice. The Battle of Marengo cemented Napoleon's reputation, not just as a brilliant strategist, but as a leader who could turn disaster into triumph. So why is the Battle of Marengo so legendary? 1. Napoleon's resilience, he endured 12 hours of defeat without collapsing. 2. The power of timing, Desaix's arrival shows how one fresh force at the right moment can change history. 3. The myth of invincibility, even when he was almost beaten, Napoleon's ability to adapt and inspire gave him the edge. Marengo wasn't just a battle, it was a story of survival, patience, and one of the greatest comebacks in military history. When you hear about Napoleon, remember this, he wasn't always the unstoppable conqueror. At Marengo, he was nearly crushed. But instead of panicking, he endured, adapted, and seized the one opportunity that appeared. That's how Napoleon survived losing for 12 hours straight, and turned it into a victory that changed Europe forever. So, What do you think? Was Napoleon lucky at Marengo, or was it pure genius? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic history breakdowns.